Another 45/100ths. So we've just been getting such consistent rain this year. I really can't believe it, considering what it's been like the last couple seasons here. Feels more like a very typical Iowa summer. It gets warm and humid and then thunderstorms, and the cycle just kind of continues. So I'm not super mad about it. There's a couple issues going on because of that heat and humidity, but overall I'd rather take that at this point than the drought that we've had for the last 3 years or so. So it's time today to sharpen some blades. Get yourself a flap disc on a grinder. It's a pretty cheap option. You can do it yourself. It's super easy. If you want to know a little more about that, I have some videos on that, but just a quick sharpen today. And while I have this thing open, I will clean out the deck just a little bit. I had a scraper that I had kind of rounded off the corners, which I can't seem to find anymore. I can't seem to find most things in my life at this point, but good option too to make sure your deck is clean when you have this opened up like this. I found this mower overall to be pretty good in terms of not getting too caked up. My Time Master a lot of times would get pretty caked up pretty easily, so I feel like this one, the design of it, I mean, it's a very classic, just rounded design here. Pretty good in terms of not getting too full of grass clippings and everything else. Well, I haven't showed you the plots here for, I think, a couple weeks, so still going pretty strong throughout the midsummer here. And definitely after that rain, hot and humid today, really sticky out here. But I will say on this fescue, it's really starting to bother me in terms of the height. You know, if you've watched a lot of videos over the past few years, that I just have gotten away from a lot of the taller cut stuff because of exactly what happens right now. It looks really, really good from a distance, but this gets so thick, and especially when you have to keep mowing it if you're in wetter and warmer conditions like we are, where we've been getting pretty good rainfall, and I'm mowing today where the grass is not wet, but it definitely is not on the dry side as far as the soil goes. And so I'll show you something right here. You'll see that this mower is basically as light as I can possibly use on here. But if you look at this, you'll see how the texture just, it misses things, it gets clumpy, it does not stay consistent. And so I cannot wait until the fall time when I can come in, cut this lower, probably going to thin it out some and see if I can get the texture back to something more consistent than it is. So obviously, like I said, from a distance, you're not going to notice this. The color looks great, but texture-wise, it is starting to get like any other thing that I've ever mowed really tall, where I get to about midsummer here and I just don't love it. Nothing wrong with those of you who love the taller lawn, but you can see down in here. I want to show you this. See here? Just how wet it stays down at the root zone here. It's almost soaked. I mean, it literally is soaked down here. So then you got this clumpy piece that's just not getting cut. It's laying over. Just not my favorite thing, but to each their own. Compare that though to the same fescue, which is over here, And if you'll remember from my early morning video a few videos ago, I don't know, it was probably 2 weeks ago or so, this was an area I was using as a check plot. So I had not been putting any fertilizer on it. It looked pretty sad, in pretty bad state at that point. So then I decided to put a round of fertilizer on here just to see how much I could wake it up, even though it is the middle of summer. And you'll notice here how beautiful it looks right now, but you'll also notice the texture is much, much better here. It's not overly thick when I go through here with the mower. It's not making these lines where things get laid down. So I definitely know that with proper care, and just because of how thick that's gotten over the last couple seasons, that I need to thin it out a little bit. And I would like it to look like this, where it's nice and uniform and even. Just wanted to show you though this bounce back on here and how much better it looks here in the last couple weeks. So I'm still pretty much scalping these low cut plots off every couple days with the rotary mower. I know that it's not a great thing to do, but I am still mowing it consistently enough. But it takes a lot of time just to get through all the stuff that I need to mow and all the stuff that I need to take care of, that this is just faster at this point. And it's not a bad test anyway, just to see what it's like for a season to cut on the lowest setting with the rotary mower. And I'm planning on doing some leveling work on these too. I have such an extensive list of fall projects coming up that I wish that I could spread out the work a little more and get started soon. But we'll get to that when we get to it. I want to show you quickly the buffalo grass. Got a whole bunch of like spurge type stuff coming in here. And then some crabgrass. You know, I planted this just a few weeks ago, and I'll show you a wider shot here in just a second. But this is actually pretty cool. So here is a little wider shot of it, and I will put up on the screen what day I planted this, but it is definitely growing in like crazy now. Starting to see some of the runners on the ground that are starting to spread, which I'll show you an example of that too. This is the first time I've ever had a warm season grass here of any kind, and so it's pretty cool to see exactly how it spreads, exactly how it starts to send out those extra shoots of grass and puts them into the ground, builds another plants on top of the ground, and it is spreading very quickly now. Of course, we're in the heat of the summer, which these are great conditions for this right now, but the only thing I have applied to it is one application of Vigor, which is a higher phosphorus type of liquid that we carry with Lawn Supply Company, and that's the only thing I've applied to it. So here's a plant that I found that kind of got ripped out of the ground, but hopefully you'll be able to see this here. So you can see where it was rooted in, and then it starts to send off these other ones, and then it will start to send some roots down and just keeps growing and growing the plants like this over top of the ground as it gets thicker and thicker. So definitely something we're not used to with the cool season grasses that we have. You do have bent grass, which kind of does a similar thing to this, but I don't have any bent grass here yet. And so this is the first time I've been able to, at my own property, see this type of thing happen. So as I said, I have been doing some hand weeding with this. I don't know a whole lot about buffalo yet in terms of products that you can or can't use, so I need to do some more research. This is a small enough plot for me right now that I'm just trying to hand weed as much as I can, and I'm noticing that as it's starting to thicken up, a lot of the areas where the weeds are just in the bare spots, so we'll see how that kind of changes over time as things get thicker and thicker here. But check this out. So you got the main plant here. You got all these coming off here. You can see the little root that once come down like that, it's gonna root itself, and then it'll start growing other plants right off of this thing. I know all you warm season people are like, yes, Ryan, we know exactly how warm season grass works, but this is not something that I've really been able to share here with most of our cool season folks. So it's a little more exciting to me maybe than it is to all of you who are used to this already. It's a different look than the rest of my plots, and it's a different look than most of my favorite stuff like ryegrass with how dark it is, but it's an interesting thing, an interesting experiment for me, and something new here that I'll keep sharing over time. Just got a lightning alert on my watch from my weather station, which tells me when there's some weather coming into the area, or at least somewhat close to me, which is kind of a cool feature. So I've been really enjoying that. I'm surprised how much it's useful for me when I'm outside all day working on things. I'm not necessarily paying attention to my phone or anything. So right here though, I'm about to mow this. This is the tall fescue micro clover. I just got done mowing the micro clover. I haven't really been able to test this season the drought properties of it and how well it was going to do in the dry conditions, just because we've had a pretty decent amount of rain this summer. Mowing these at about 2.5, maybe 2 3/4 inches. Behind me we have my beloved ryegrass, and which I've been thinking about a lot actually lately, and how I don't think there was a single person when I told them that I was going to be doing a lot of work with ryegrass years and years ago that said that it was a good idea here for our climate. They're like, oh no, you just definitely don't want to do anything with that grass. It's only there to get bluegrass started, or it's only there to cover some ground while something else comes in. It's not going to be a turf that you want to use long term. It's just not going to work. And so luckily I did not listen to them, and I just started to do my own research and my own testing here in the hot and humid climate, and to see what was actually going to happen with it. And lo and behold, it has turned out to be not only my absolute favorite, but just by far something that has impresses me every day with the way that it looks. So I'm glad that I did my own testing. Definitely my first spray here worked. I got a couple things to clean up. That's a good start here. We're gonna get some bluegrass put into this spot here, probably about 2-3 weeks. Behind me here in this maze of a few weeds that I need to clean up yet. I did not put any pre-emergent on these plots because they were brand new this spring, but this is the non-irrigated test plot area. And of course I've not done any irrigation on it, but I haven't needed to this year, and everything is looking pretty good because we've been getting adequate rainfall. But this is a long-term testing spot. These are the same grass types that I have over in my main plots, and I just want to see what they do without irrigation, see how quickly they dry out, do they need overseeding, what do they need long term, to see how everything survives. So that's the whole point of this, but I haven't showed it in a while just because there hasn't really been much to show. It hasn't really been dry. And all this foxtail and crabgrass that's coming in, I pretty much, whenever it does rain, I can come in here and fairly quickly pull this by hand. Haven't decided to spray anything, but if you wanted to, I'd probably go after this right now with some quinclorac at a cooler part of the day, and you could probably wipe this out pretty quickly. Well, here we are out in the front yard. Decided to go with a single double pattern today. I actually don't think I've done that on this yard yet, so that was kind of nice to get one of those in and just see what it looks like. And we're still really doing well out here. Remember, this is a spring seeding. I know it's crazy, but overall very, very good results. There's a couple of texture things I want to work on here too, but definitely not complaining though, considering this is about 3 months old. One thing I wanted to touch on was some brown patch that's starting. Hot, humid, and then quite a few thunderstorms. So this is sitting a lot of times at night, where the grass might actually just be staying wet, and then you start to run into some fungus issues here. And so we will talk about more fungus stuff either coming up, or that video might actually be out now. I'm going to shoot something here in the next day or so talking about some different fungus things and what you should be thinking about with that. One more spring seeding update to show you over on this north side of the building here. I don't think I've showed this in a while. This came in great. I did just spray some crabgrass over here, foxtail, which is definitely dying off, but other than that, look at this. Really, really looks good. So lots of summer updates for you in this one. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.